But one of the things I always wanted to do, because I had people who were harassing me at the time. The children I played with, always were harassing me because I made a mistake, which is I told them about what was happening to me. And so they would always at one point when we were playing start up with games about the alien and all this other stuff, and I did not really like it. So I would try to take things out of this ship so that when I went down, I could show them something to kind of amaze them. And one of the things I kept trying to get was a thing called a learning cube. Now, when you go through the educational process every day that I was going through in that chair and the wall that I showed you, you would have a learning cube. The cube basically would take all the stuff you had been taught, all the different events, all the sequencing of those events, and put it in this cube. And you could actually telepathically interconnect with the cube, and you could get details. Now, I got pretty good details. I had a photographic mind. That was the bane of a lot of history teachers with me, because I could tell people, you know, see footnote so-and-so on page so-and-so, and I would immediately tell them what it was because I had this photographic memory. So, but what this cube did was it was totally able to have you remember it perfectly for, let's say, 5-6 weeks later. You could remember it clearly, unbelievably clearly. There was no loss of what was in the lesson. So I used to use them whenever I first came up, and I would do it again before I left. So I would always try to hide this little thing in my pocket and hopefully take it. And Washington would always tell me to take it back. And he said, if I ever started showing all this technology to people, I would get in a lot of trouble. So he told me all the time to not do it. And he made it clear to me that he would always make sure that I did not take anything down with me. And that's what he did. So this little picture of where he simply says, put that back in my hands. And what they would do is it would lift up and it would teleport over to him. It would disappear and reappear in his hand. So that was something that I really enjoyed. And this is a nice little picture of the ship looking through the portal of one of the ships, of the alleys of the, because these things would appear and then disappear. It was almost more like a special kind of holographic screen than a window. And you would see the Sirian ship. This is the Sirian sphere ship heading down to Earth. A lot of times he would be there looking out, and I would see him looking out one of the windows as I was approaching. Because it was another way that they would pick me up, which is they would take a Sirian ship that was cloaked, it would come down, and it would basically beam me up into the storage area of the ship, and then they would go up into the ship itself and land there. And then I would get out and Washta and his entourage, or the parts of the entourage would be there, and they would lead me to Washta, and he would then begin his studies with me. Sometimes he would take me on a tour, and this ship was huge, you know. It was like just about all of Southern California put together in one vessel. It was huge. So I enjoyed all of that. It was a wonderful childhood that I had, and when I got all the knowledge together and I saw the way people were treating the way I was, it upset me a little bit. And I got into science, and I started saying to myself, well, look, the science that I have been learning with the Sirians and with the Galactic Federation people that were part of this education process that I was going through is such that it taught me tremendously about what is going on with science. What is science? What is the nature? How was the universe created? How was stars really created? How were planets put together? What are the attraction forces, etc.? I would go through all of that. I was a wizard at science when I was a kid. As a matter of fact, when I was in 7th grade, very embarrassed, I was brought up to the stage during orientation in 7th grade by the chairman of the science department at my junior high school. And I was just sitting there in a chair, and she told the whole class and the whole school that I was an example of what studying science was all about. So I always thought that I was going to wind up being a scientist. I did not realize that my life would be entirely different. So when I was 15, I decided I want to create science. I want to kind of be in a modern-day Newton or Einstein. I want to use all this knowledge all this wonderful stuff that I had access to, subject matters, unbelievable amounts of. I wanted to take all of that and put it into a very simply formulated way of transcending science from where it is right now into the kind of science and technology that the Sirians and other members of the Galactic Federation possess. That's what I wanted to do. So I said the way to do this is I have to seek my own path. So when I was 15, I asked them to leave, and they said that I would be returned to the Sirians because I had a mission, and that when that was ready to begin, they would show up again. And I, of course, thought that would not happen. And to make things very short, what happened to me was that I didn't wind up in science because when I went to university, the vice chairman of the physics department was a Newtonian. And so when I explained to him that Newtonian physics was only a small part of a greater science, he did not like that. So I got flunked out of physics, and I had to switch over to political science, which is where I wound up getting my major degrees in. So, however, when I was in the 1980s, I did indeed wind up getting, as they said, reawakened to my mission, and I began doing that. And as I did that, I saw that I needed people around me to help me with this mission. And so I created a thing called as it says here, I was returned and I had a refresher course that told me to go public with my mission in the early 1990s. So let's go through what I was told in the 1980s to talk about. One, we are all in the midst of a great shift that is physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually returning us to full consciousness, and we'll be talking about that. Mother Earth is changing and is returning to her fully conscious monopolar self. The shift that is about to happen to our planet, which I'm going to give you a slight glimpse of today, because if I did all the subjects at the level that I wanted to do them all, I would be talking till next Sunday, so I don't want to do that. But what I want to do is give you a taste of things. So what we're going to do in this lecture is talk about what is being fully conscious, how do you get there, what is a monopolar reality, what does it mean? Now, because of all the changes happening to us, the awakening or ascension process, first contact is indeed imminent, and a major turning point in human history. We can look at first contact, history before first contact, and history after first contact. So let's now move on. So the thing that I'm really emphasizing is this, which is approaching, which is, to us, first contact is a global mass landing that includes not only the people of the Galactic Federation, but also various angelic realms and ascended masters that are going to participate in this. So it's not just a process of people from other worlds and an organization that represents them coming to see us. It's also the spiritual family coming to re-greet us in a way that we can see, feel, and touch, and allow us to begin the process of better understanding who and what we are. So, before I get into the organization that I just talked about was created, Colleen wants to talk to you.
Well, there's a couple questions. A couple people asked, are you just going in your consciousness to the ships, or are you physically going to the ships? I mean, I thought it was clear, but a couple people are unclear about that.
Okay, in the beginning, I was physically going to the ships. When I was starting up again in the 80s, I went into the ships. What they decided for me to do, which would be much more efficient, was to put me in direct contact with them. So what they did was they gave me various implants that allow me to do two things. One, I can hear them. I can constantly hear them. The second thing is they give me a holographic 3D picture, much like the same process that was used, that I was talking about during the educational process when I was a kid. So they're continually doing that. And one of the things they allowed me when I was first starting out in this was a number of people who were interviewing me. They opened up the field long enough and far enough so that they could hear me, and they hear the people. And they said, wow, there's this person inside your head or wherever it is that is speaking, and says things just before you do. So that's basically the process of how I operate. That's how I'm doing this lecture. Sometimes you'll hear me pausing. It's because they're explaining things to me. So anything more before we move on?
Well, you know what? One of the things that is in your DVD, Syrian Mothership, Sheldan has a DVD about taking you on a tour through a Syrian mothership, and we'll talk more about that at the end. But you can go to our website anytime and look at these. So if this is of your interest, that DVD has a lot more information and some fun things about being on a ship. But tell the story about going through the walls. That's always everybody's favorite.
Okay. Well, one of the things they would do with me is they would give me this little pin, and they would put that on me. And what it would allow me to do was you would close your eyes and just walk, and the walls' energies and the energies of your body would then merge together, and you would be able to walk through the walls. And when you did it, when you were actually going through the wall, you would feel this cold little shiver. And so to me, it was like a little game, because it was like somebody throwing an ice cube down your spine. So I like to feel it because, to me, it showed that I was doing something. And you'd open your eyes after you felt that shiver, and you'd be in another room, or else you'd be out in the hallway. So I loved it. So I used to, one time I think I went through one wall about 4 or 5 times in a row before they finally told me to stop. So to me, it was like a game. And of course, I tried to steal the pin a few times to show people. And of course, like the cube, they always told me, cough it up, so to speak, using their nicer language.
I'm sure. Okay, Planetary Activation Organization.
Okay, we move on. So let's look at what Planetary Activation Organization is. PAO, or the Planetary Activation Organization, was established in Maui, Hawaii in actually November 1997. I was in Maui for about 9 years, from 1996 to the middle of 2006. So really about 9.5 years. And during that time, I created and we began working with what is now known as the Planetary Activation Organization. So PAO's purpose, as it says here, is to prepare the world for first contact with the Galactic Federation of Light. And as we just said, that's a mass contact. It's also to spread the message of the Galactic Federation of Light, one of higher consciousness, love, and unity. To establish a network of planetary activation groups, or PAGs, around the world. Now, PAGs, planetary activation groups, work in coordination with PAO to prepare us for our future role as physical angels and Earth stewards. PAGs are inwardly guided and actively involved in awakening people to the global transformation in consciousness. Now, what we are asking people who form PAGs to do is just basically 3 things. 1, tell us that you exist, because that would be nice to know that you exist. Secondly, that's so we can guide you and give you information or whatever you may request. Secondly, to do those things that give you joy. Come together and work out between all of you a formula that works for you about what you want to do with your PAG. How do you want to affect your community? How do you want to affect the people around you? And then the third thing we simply ask you to do is to simply, whatever it is that you want to do, to please do it. And in doing so, to inform us of the success or whatever of doing it. So that is really all that we ask of it. Otherwise, we ask PAGs to do their thing, to do what gives them joy, because that is the basis of being a galactic human, is to do things that give you joy.